He was actually retweeting something which many people had retweeted. We're not afraid to tell the truth. And that scares them the most because podcasters, that's people like you and me, are saying things online and they're not even regulated, I think was our point. Over there in the UK, people are getting lifted left, right, and centre for tweets.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's returning, and always, and I mean always, amazing is that gentleman from across the Irish Sea, from the Emerald Isle, and it's Derek Domino. How you doing, Derek?
I'm doing very well, Nick. Great to be with you as always, and your viewers, of course. Always a pleasure. I always look forward to it. Right, where are we going today?
Well, today, again, something I saw one of your videos and thought, wow, they've got this problem exactly the same as we have in the UK. And I didn't realize you had this, which is your police and your government are arresting people for posting stuff online. And I don't mean nasty stuff. I don't mean let's go kill these people. And I don't mean stuff like that, which, inciting violence should be a criminal offense because we don't want to be inciting people to be hurting people. That's the only caveat with free speech I think we should have is incitement to violence. But you had a gentleman called Kirk Loco, which is a great name. And considering he's called Kirk, he should be quite lucky that he only got arrested because someone else called Kirk got shot in the head for thinking he had free speech. At least Kirk Loco was only arrested in Ireland. But can you tell us about that? This guy's tweeting online. Why was he arrested by the Irish police? Please excuse this interruption. Anglophobia. Why do they hate us? Is it jealousy, envy?
Well, Kirk Loco, and as you rightly said, it's an absolutely fabulous name. That's a name made for showbiz. And he has been very active on Twitter for the past number of years. I follow his work as Terry K is what he was called. His real name is Kirk Loco, and he's switched his account now to Kirk Loco because I think that's a wonderful. It's way better than Terry K. He should have started with Kirk Loco. But anyway, Kirk got caught in the weeds there. He's a regular poster, and like many commentators, including yourself, Nick, who are active on Twitter, he puts out a lot of breaking news, a lot of stories that won't make it to the mainstream media, incidents that happen around the country, and particularly incidents, because there's a lot of them, to do with new to the parish people who perhaps shouldn't be here or are here on for dubious reasons. So he's not shy about doing all that. And a lot of people follow him, and I follow him, and I get a lot of background information because I follow a lot of people. And when you're digging into a story, you're trying to figure out the ins and outs of what happened. You're going looking for the original footage. You're going looking for maybe eyewitness accounts. You're doing all the digging that you have to do, as you know, before you could put together a video. You've got to know what you're talking about. And part of that kind of landscape would be people like Kirk Loco, who does the groundwork. He, like yourselves, he watches a lot of news. He picks up a lot of stories. And he does it in the Twitter sphere. He doesn't do it on the YouTube thing like we do, but he's very, very active there and a good operator. Now, he got caught there a few weeks ago for a tweet. And I don't want to prejudice any. This thing is rumbling its way through the court system at the moment. He was arrested at 7 o'clock on a Monday morning at home. He was woken up by a few members of An Garda Síochána were there to take him away in the back of the car, which they did do, and brought him down to the police station to question him, and they eventually charged him because of a tweet that he had put out. He was actually retweeting something which many people had retweeted. It wasn't just him.
But he didn't create a post. He just retweeted a post.
Yeah, there was an incident, as I understand it, there was an incident on public transport where a migrant of some description was accused by a female passenger on the bus of doing a certain thing. And she, took pictures or photos or video or whatever. And she put it up, as many people do all the time, how many of these bits and pieces float around the Twitter sphere from day start to day's end. So she put this up, and of course people started picking up on it and seeing it. As I said, many people got onto it, many people retweeted it, reposted it, and Kirk was one of those people. Now, I spoke to Kirk about this, and he said, "Look, I did as much due diligence as I possibly could at the time. I reached out and I did as much, and I was told it was 100%. And it turned out in the end that it wasn't, that there was some porkies involved in that situation. Look, that's unfortunate. But anyway, he was lifted for this. Not any of the other hundreds or thousands of people who, as you do, you just retweet something you find interesting or you see interesting. He was charged with spreading hate or one of these type of things, and he's up in court in a not too distant future. And I wish him well on that, and I'm hoping to have him on the channel very soon too, to have a chat with him, because it's a new development for us really here, Nick, in Ireland, the whole tweeting. I know it's nothing new over there in the UK. People are getting lifted left, right, and centre for tweets. Everything from the sublime to the ridiculous, really, as far as I can see. And many people are going to prison for it, which is
Yeah.
even scarier.
In the UK, it's something like 40 people a day in the UK are arrested for online communication. 40 a day. Russia, Russia has 300 a year. We have 40 a day. And it's like, which one is the authoritarian state, eh?
And this is a new kind of development for us. Now, they were trying to get these crazy draconian hate speech laws passed, as you know, and that kind of there was such an outcry over that really fell apart at the land. Now, they got bits of it through, but not the worst bits of it, not the most draconian bits of it. So, as part of it, had they got that through, we would be right up there with you guys in terms of people getting lifted for tweets and sent to prison for tweets. Now, they couldn't get it passed because here in Ireland, we are by nature, a very irreverent body. We have a certain way of going on here, Nick, that you're well aware of. You've been here many times. We are no shrinking violets. We can give it and we have to take it. We can, as we call it, we can slag off each other. Now, that's not a different, probably a different meaning from what slag means over there. But to us, it means you give somebody a ribbing. You can have good-hearted. You get a slagging, as we would say here. Now you have to be able to take it, if you and you as well if you're going to give it. So we have a very kind of a loose thing here where we will slag each other off, and it can get pretty close to the bone sometimes. But that's just who we are. We've always been a kind of an irreverent type of humor, a bit bawdy, a bit close to the bone. But at the end of the day, that was the society. We were always that way. You grew up in that society. You could dish it out, but you had to be able to take it too. And now that everything's online now, as you know. It's not done at the street corner. It's not done even as much in the pub. It's done on Twitter, which is pretty brutal at times. And now that we're at the stage here in Ireland where if you put a foot wrong and you're the wrong kind of person, as in you don't toe the line, the government's line, the mainstream media's line, you don't bow down to the right groups in society, or you criticize the wrong groups in society, they're at the point of saying, "Listen, we'll come and pick you up, and we'll take you away, we'll charge you, we might even imprison you." And it's meant to have a chilling effect on us all. That's what it's for, Nick. Regardless of what happens to Kirk in this situation, it's meant to send a signal to us here in Ireland. Listen, you can see what's going on over in the UK. Anybody wants to look that up, they can see how many people are getting lifted, as you say, 40 a day. That could all come here very fast. So you guys better watch your step. That's really what they're up to with this one. And the other thing I'd like to say about it is that the mainstream media were happy, in fact, delighted to splash all of Kirk's details, everything about him, that day in the mainstream press, in the mainstream newspapers, everything. Yes, the guy who raped that 10-year-old girl in the iPass in the immigrant centre a few weeks ago, nobody knows what his name is. Nobody knows anything about him except his age. That's it. So, two-tier justice? I think so.
Oh yeah, and you're right. This is about punishment before we get to court, and it's about warning everybody else. It's about warning you, Derek. This is the state saying to you, "This is what we're going to do if you cross a line." And we're not going to tell you where that line is, by the way, David. We're not going to tell you. But if you cross a line that we've imagined and put there in front of you, we're coming for you hard. Now, back to this particular one with what's he called? Kirk Loco. A couple of things I wanted to say was, first of all, we have free speech. You have free speech. So unless you incite violence, directly incite violence, we have free speech. Tweeting something that turns out to be wrong shouldn't be a criminal offence. Tweeting something you know is wrong shouldn't be a criminal offence. Purposely lying online shouldn't be a criminal offence, because this is because if we start demonizing and criminalizing this, the next question is, who's in charge of telling us what the truth is? Who's in charge of saying who knows what's offensive? You would have said things in the past maybe that I might find offensive, and vice versa, but other people wouldn't have found offensive. Who's the person in charge of deeming that's offensive or that's not offensive? And once we get to that, that's called state censorship. Once we get to that.
Well, it's like a guy, sitting beside you in the bar, and you start to talk about football, and the guy swears to you that Coventry City won the FA Cup in 1985, and they didn't. Now, maybe he knows they didn't, or maybe he thinks they did. Is that guy now spreading misinformation and disinformation? Now, that's the pub is now Twitter, or X is now the online version of the pub. So, what is information that's misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation? What is, who decides, as you say, where's the bar there between somebody just saying, listen, somebody giving you the wrong information about who won the FA Cup in 1985, either deliberately or accidentally? Should that person then be lifted by the police for spreading misinformation? Who decides is that a criminal offence? Who decides is that offensive to people? Could somebody take offence at that? Perhaps a Liverpool fan or a Manchester United fan or a Leeds United fan might take huge offence to that. So can they ring the police station and say, listen, I want that guy picked up and questioned over that and possibly jailed? Can't be doing that, spreading offensive stuff like that around the internet. So where does the line start and stop? We don't know. We don't know, Nick, and that's on purpose, as you say. And I know as well as you do how careful we have to be here on YouTube. There are people don't realize how restrictive the algorithms are and how restrictive the rules are, which they keep changing, and they're always kind of a little bit fuzzy. You never quite know where the line actually is. You just have to make the best guess you can. And sometimes, you hope you're right all the time, but they could change the rules, and next week, 10 of my videos could be deemed whatever, and same with yours. So, this is the chilling effect that they like to do to people that they don't like us, people who point out things they don't want being pointed out, people who cover stories they don't want covered, people who criticize government policies that they don't want criticized, the whole range of things. There's a batch of people who are doing the job the mainstream media has abandoned, telling the public the truth. We are now in that void, in that gap, doing that job, and they really don't like it. They don't like it, and they wish we would go away. And if they can help it at all, they'd like to help us go away.
Yeah, I mean, we have these discussions in Parliament all the time in the UK. How are we going to control the internet? How do we stop misinformation on the internet? How do we stop hate on the internet? But what they really mean is, how do we censor the internet? Because certain phrases, certain words, certain people cause anxiety, they cause hate. And it's like, who deems that? Who's the arbiter of that? This is a slippery slope, a real slippery slope we've gone down in the UK. We're not a free country anymore. We're really not. My definition of free speech is this. Free speech is allowing people you don't like to say things you don't like. That's the only definition of free speech worth having, because once you start putting a caveat on anything else, it's censorship.
Absolutely. And we had a senator, I think, in one of the parliamentary committees, at all committees last week. I saw a clip of it. And she was opining, she was actually, distressed that podcasters, that's people like you and me, are saying things online and they're not even regulated, I think was her point. As you can see where this is going. They really hate the things we talk about and the subjects we bring up for the general public's viewership. And we don't owe the public owe us nothing to click off or on to us, whether, in a heartbeat. So, we have to really do our due diligence. We have to cover stories that are relevant to people's lives, which we try to do. And yet the government hate this and they want it regulated. She was more or less saying, look, but they are not official. They're not licensed. As in, we should be issuing them with a license to do what they do, which, as you know, as soon as they don't like what you do, they just don't give you the license. We just can't renew your license. Sorry about that. You're out of business. So that's already rumbling through our parliamentary committees by politicians, and that's exactly what they want. They want us regulated, which means they want us neutered, which is what it really is.
Yeah, and every authoritarian state does this. That's why, books are banned in certain countries. That's why people didn't want the printing press hundreds of years ago. That's why China blocked half the internet, because information is power. Information is power. Information can lead people to want something different in life, in which case that's fearful for the government that are our people going to turn on us and overthrow us? We see this all the time. We saw it in Sri Lanka. Was it 2 years ago? Sri Lanka government over many years introduced net zero policies, which reduced the farming productivity in Sri Lanka, and everybody became poor and became starving. And they overthrew the government, stormed the palace, overthrew the government. And I would imagine, I don't know this for sure, but I would imagine some of that would have been organized online. And that's why they don't want us to have the power. I think it was Stalin who said, we don't let our enemies have guns. Why should we let them have ideas? Because they know how powerful information and ideas are. And they're always trying to squash it down, because a dumb people, a scared people are easy to control. I don't want us to be dumb, and I don't want us to be scared.
Well, there should be a range of options, Nick. Just like, you have a range of TV channels, a range of of radio channels, and a range of different options, and you can pick and choose what you want to watch or listen to, and what personalities you enjoy listening to or watching. And that's the way it should be. And as a free people in a democratic society, that should be our right to do that. And the online space is just an extension of what we used to have in the old days. We had BBC One, BBC Two, Channel 4, all that. Now we have a zillion possible channels, which is great, for people. And people can sift through all of that content and decide they like this person, they like that person. This person seems to make sense. This person's views seem to chime with my life experience. They seem to talk a lot of sense. But the government is mad about that, because they've managed to clamp down, certainly here in Ireland, and I think it's the same in the UK. They managed to really get the mainstream media locked down, including the newspapers, the magazines, print media, the radio stations, the TV. They just had them absolutely locked down and in their pocket, so that no ideas that they didn't want getting out there, well, they just died. They just didn't get on air. But then the internet came along, blew that whole model apart. So they're desperate to try and get this genie back into the box. And one of the main ways they're doing it is starting to lock people up. That's the chilling effect. We're all supposed to say, whoa, that could be me. I better just tone things down. But of course, we're not going to tone things down. We only have one speed, and that's full speed ahead. So yeah, I think it's dangerous times, dark times. I don't know how it's going to play out in the end, because, like I said, here in Ireland, we really do value being able to kind of, get out there and with our forthright views, whether they hurt people's feelings, whether people disagree with those views. We can give it and take it. We've always been the same. We've always had healthy debates here and arguments, and we could have a pint over it, and we could sit beside each other at the football match next day, and we were always up for that. And they want all that taken away. They want it sanitized to the point where everybody's afraid to say certain things and they're afraid to voice certain opinions. I don't want to live in that Ireland. I really don't.
Yeah. I've got two friends online, Silver Fox Hot Takes on YouTube and Craig Houston Talks To, again on YouTube. Both of them this year have been arrested under miscommunication. Silver Fox was arrested 9 o'clock on a Friday night for four videos he did. And one of the videos was he made a joke about Hitler and a German politician. He got arrested for that. And one of the other things he got arrested for was using the phrase against Keir Starmer, saying the something like he should be hung up on a lamppost, but with piano wires, and they interpreted that as a threat to the prime minister. That's a phrase we've been using for since Mussolini was hung by his neck on a lamppost, and Craig Houston again arrested for similar stuff, talking about immigration. Both of them are on bail. Both of them are waiting to see if they're going to be charged. Could not been charged yet. Always on bail, and then what happens is that it's dropped because being on bail for 6, 8, 9 months is the punishment. The police know this is never going to court. They know even if it goes to court, they're never getting a conviction. But the process is the punishment, because I can imagine it's not very nice being on bail for 9 months, having to go to a police station to sign on, them confiscating all your electronic equipment, your neighbours watching the police come to your house. Is he a terrorist? Is he a pedo? What's he done? That's the punishment. And then talking about controlling the mainstream media. We've got two half-decent channels in the UK, Talk TV and GB News. Talk TV is now not on mainstream TV anymore. They're not being broadcast. A couple of months ago, they moved completely to online to get away from Ofcom, because they said they were running their programs constantly scared of Ofcom, constantly scared of being sued and having big fines put on them, which would bankrupt them. So they've had to abandon mainstream TV and they've gone straight to YouTube. And the other one, GB News, is constantly fighting Ofcom. They've lost presenters because of Ofcom. They can't have certain guests on because of Ofcom. They're so controlled, and they're still trying to do their best, probably. But, they're not what we thought they were going to be because of government interference, saying, you will not discuss these things. You will not have that presenter. You cannot say these things. We've had 9 complaints about that program. We're now doing an investigation, which will last a year. So the problem in the UK is absolutely huge.
And that's why they're so scared of people like us in our small way, because we are the free riders. We're out there doing our own thing in our own way from our own places. We're not beholden to anyone. We don't need a license from the government every year to be renewed to do what we do. We're not afraid to tell the truth, and that scares them the most, because I mean, the only thing they can do to people like you and me, Nick, is take us away in a squad car, in a police car, and lock us up for a while. And then, as you say, put the trial back for 6 months, so that you're tearing your hair out wondering, well, what's going to happen? What will I do? What does this mean going forward? All that, the process is the punishment. As you say, the process is the punishment. But they won't get this genie back in the bottle. I really don't think so. And with Elon Musk having bought X, I think that changed the game. That changed the whole landscape.
Yeah, I never realized Musk buying X was going to change the Western world, and it has changed the world. It's brought these conversations to the fore, and it's brought mass migration, remigration again to the fore, because we're allowed to talk about it. I half expect at some point to have the police knocking on my door. I half expect it. And what I always say when we discuss this is, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. I'm not for changing. I don't censor anything I say online. I try to be accurate. I try to be polite. I try to have a decent conversation, but I use my own internal matrix for that. That's what I'm doing. I don't care what the government say. I don't care what YouTube rules are. I don't even look at YouTube rules. I'm intent on saying what I want to say in the manner I want to say it. And if there's consequences to that, then come and have a go, because I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid anymore now. I've got no intentions of living on my knees. I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. I'm not for changing.
Well, I would be exactly the same, Nick. And I think anybody who does what we do and in the areas that we live and cover, I think it's always at the back of your mind. You know, at some stage you'll strike a nerve, you'll really tick somebody off who's in a powerful position, perhaps, and they'll just say, "Look, just take that person out. Just take them out of the mix for a while and put the shivers down their spine." I think so. Yeah, I mean, I live with exactly the same background thoughts as you do. That's there could be a knock on the door any day, and it might not be for anything particular. I might just have rubbed somebody up the wrong way, and I'm the same as yourself. I don't get bogged down in the weeds of the fine print of the YouTube rules. I use my own judgment. I try to be fair and balanced to all the people I cover and all the stories I cover. I do my own research from the ground and I try and present it in a way that I think people would be interested in. And that's all I do. And look, if somebody decides someday in a government department or government office, listen, that guy's beyond the pale, we're going to have to do something about him, then so be it. So be it. Then that is the death of journalism. It's the death of free speech, and it's the death of telling the truth, which I think will be a very sad day.
Absolutely. And if that happened to you or happened to me, I think I can guarantee both me and you would end up being a bigger pain in their backside than before they did it, because we would go to the press, we would do more videos, our online presence would double, it would triple, it would quadruple because of what they'd done to us. It's a little bit like in Star Wars when Obi-Wan Kenobi says to Darth Vader, if you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
That's very true. And the great thing about this YouTube community, and it is a kind of a community, of creators like ourselves, many people like us doing our own little thing, is that when one of us, gets really put upon, I think there's a rally there. We rally together because we're in this together. We all face the same challenges. Content creators here in Ireland, the same as content creators over there in Britain, and indeed in other parts of Europe and even America. We're all in this together. We're all trying to do what's right and try to do the best we can and to try and bring truth to the people, which, as I said, the mainstream media has absconded from. They've left that pitch. We're on that pitch, and they really don't like us there. But look, let's just hope, Nick, that that will keep them to some degree at bay from overstepping the mark because, as you say, they can strike one of us down. They have the tools, they have all the state apparatus, they have the police there ready to go anytime they're instructed. But they could strike one of us down. But imagine the videos, Nick, the videos, the outpouring of support that would come from the content creator community is what they fear, and that's good. That's good. I want them to fear that because that's
Absolutely.
all we have, really.
And if that happens to you, then you can change the name of your channel to Mandela Domino.
I'll come back as Derek Dominus,
Yeah.
and then Derek Domine, and then maybe Derek Dominatrix. Well, maybe not that one. No, maybe not. That's a different thing entirely. I'll leave that one
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that sort of stuff might get this video banned.
They definitely have a reason to put me away for that one.
Derek, as always, thank you so much for a really good conversation.
Always a pleasure, Nick. Look forward to chatting to you again soon.
Bye bye.